This is the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast.
Oh no! We suck again!
I'm getting confused. What game are you calling?
I'm calling both games.
It is caught by Kelsey! Touchdown! Kansas City!
Anthony for three. Bang!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ruckus and The Menace Podcast. I am Ruckus.
I'm Ruckus and The Menace.
In this episode, we will talk about our high heat. We will also talk a little bit about the Week 17 film room, minus the Monday night game. And then we will talk our color commentary. Go ahead.
Yeah, this episode is definitely going to be a little bit shorter than normal due to Ruckus talking about the Monday night game, and I will kind of put this up front before we get into the pregame warm-ups, and we'll preface this with the Damar Hamlin cardiac arrest freak accident, as I kind of would say that this would be. And I think that the best thing that we definitely want to do as a podcast for this is to kind of lift up this in a matter of a word of prayer, and kind of to start us out on a little bit more of a note of this side of the humanity, and how we love sports, but things like this make it really bigger than football. Let us go ahead and pray. God, our gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for obviously a platform that you have provided for us to be able to convey sports as we see it, just from two standard guys putting together episodes weekly in talking about a topic that we have been gifted with a passion for. God, I want to lift up this episode, and also lift up Damar Hamlin, especially after what we may not always know why bad things happen, but God, you're sovereign. God, you're sovereign through it. You are you are someone who his will is done, and we can lift up Damar Hamlin to you, to know that you are the great physician, and you are the one that could make all of this possible. And I also pray that you continue to show grace to the unfortunate person on the other side with T. Higgins as well, and continue to show grace that this was accident, and definitely to forgive even in the nature of sports. God, continue to provide Ruckus and I with situations like this that are much bigger than the sports we enjoy, and as a whole, that this all is bigger than football. I pray that the executives and teams around the NFL are able to stay vigilant on what to do, and look to the Bills and Bengals coming together and talking this over, and being able to stand in unity though two teams were battling in a situation that was bigger than in a situation as bigger than football, rose up, that great healing can come out of this, and that Damar on the other side will see that it was your work and your will that was done in your name. Amen.
That was beautiful, Spennis.
and and I know that this is a heavy thing to kind of go right into kind of just some off-topic things, but other than that, I mean, really ringing the new year with sinus infection and some board and card games with my family. Of course, playing a little bit of video games, but not tired from the illness. Um, I also last night did the Two Nerds in a Pod guest spot with the Game of the Year episode. Special thanks to Lom and Mac for me being a part of that last night. It was always a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun whenever we get three of us together, and even Ruckus being mentioned early on in the attempted recording.
Because they literally in the podcast live, I couldn't hear either Spennis or Mac. Like, they have their like video cams up, so like you could tell that their mouths were moving, but like but the problem was is you couldn't hear the mouths.
Yeah, I think it was something on Lom's end,
Yeah.
kind of which kind of happened, but at the same time, it was. I was like, this is just Ruckus with the norm. It was like, I know Ruckus, and I even said it on the live. It's like, I know Ruckus doesn't miss hearing my voice
Yeah.
because we're the ones doing all of this.
Yeah. Can I add something really quick on the Hamlin situation?
Yep.
So yeah, whenever me and Spennis were talking for the podcast write-ups that we normally do before we do our pod,
This actually happened.
yeah, so like we didn't know what was going on. And so there were times where whenever he was trying to like say, "Oh, let's do something for the primetime game or whatever," I was like, hold on, man. I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on here." Cuz whenever it happened, it was all so fast. But also we didn't know the super severity of it. It was all like kind of a what is going on game, whether or not the announcer was saying something about, oh, maybe we'll pick this up in like another 5 minutes. There was a whole thing about uh, um, the guy getting CPR and then just seeing the looks of the players. Like, it was like a horror ordeal. I don't think we've, in the history of the NFL or sports, we have seen something like this. The last I heard about his recovery, it sounds like he's doing better, but what in the short spurts that we get on the reports, I'm just happy that he's doing better.
Yeah, the latest update I saw on it was that he was 50% on the ventilator as compared to 100% on the ventilator as of yesterday.
I saw something about his uncle saying that, and I applaud just in general how this is going. It could have been a whole lot worse. It could have been handled a whole lot worse, and I pray for Damar Hamlin and his family and the NFL and the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt.
All right.
But,
As
but
far
even though we ended up
good.
going into my pregame warm-ups, we now can go to yours.
Yeah, I
How
was
have
about
you?
to say. So for my pregame or whatever I have been doing is I have been spending a lot of time with my best friend from high school. Shout out, Brandman. Uh, is his YouTube channel, but also he's I've met him since middle school days, and we've been best buds ever since. We actually last week, Monday and Friday, we both went to the range a couple times, and I even showed you a couple videos of that. And we had a LAN party this weekend and on New Year's Eve, and it was a lot of fun. Played a lot of Warhammer, played some Hunt Showdown, played some uh, Payday, and some other stuff. But yeah, I also watched the Chiefs game New Year's Day Sunday, and it was fun. We had a blast, um, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. We ready to go into the
Yep.
starting
Yep.
lineup?
Let's get right into the starting lineup here. We have now found that MLB players from Cuba are now permitted to represent their country in the World Baseball Classic coming up here in about a few months. USC was stunned by Tulane, who scored 16 points in the final 4 minutes to win the Cotton Bowl. Tennis great Martina Navratilova was diagnosed with 2 different cancers. There was no update as to which ones. I didn't really see like a complete update as to what they were. The first on-field referee to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Art McNally, passed away at 97 years old. And right now, Rafael Devers, who had just signed a 1-year deal to avoid arbitration, is now turning into an 11-year extension with the Boston Red Sox. So it's nice that my baseball team was able to secure one of the notable hometown or homegrown products. It just, did I think it was the correct one? No, but I think it was one that needed to be done, especially for the ballpark. And I know that we mentioned, of course, the Damar Hamlin stuff, and we were going to have the TCU Georgia game in our film room this week, as Ohio State and Michigan both lost in the college football playoff semifinal, as TCU stunned Michigan and Ohio State lost to Georgia on a missed field goal, to have our national championship on Monday be TCU and Georgia. And now we go to our main topic of this week, the Week 17 recap of the High Heat. Ruckus, your most impressive team this week was?
My most impressive team was the did I
Forget
say?
to set the top part again.
Yes, yes. For the love of God. My most impressive team was the New York Giants. I will say that off the top of my head because of what I'll talk about here in a bit. Um, but yeah, Daniel Jones had a good game. Their whole offense and defense had a good game. Against who was it? The Commanders, or was it a different?
No, it wasn't the Commanders, because the Commanders were playing the Browns.
That's right. That's right. Um, I don't know. Either way, I'm gonna pick my most impressive team as the Giants, New York Football Giants.
Team this week was the Green Bay Packers. After getting a nice little beating handed to them by the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers were able to come back and take the really control of their own destiny in the playoffs, and also eliminating the Washington Commanders, unfortunately, in playoff fashion from playoff contention. And by the way, Ruckus, the Giants played the Colts.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I don't know why I blanked on that. My most disappointing team would have had to been probably. Give me a sec. I think I goofed on it because I was paying so much attention to that game that I forgot to do the stuff. I'm gonna have to say the Oakland Raiders, or not the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders.
They scored 34 points and lost in overtime to the 49ers.
And the 49ers are a very hot team.
Yeah, so why would you say that the Raiders were disappointing?
Um,
Especially as they played that without Derek Carr.
okay. I think my original thing that I had there, the Jets, is probably a better one, even
Oh
though.
yeah, because with the Jets being eliminated from playoff contention at that point and basically falling themselves apart. Yep, I could see why you would take the Jets. I had my most disappointing team being the Washington Commanders, and we clearly know why. Bonehead decisions that probably should have the head coach and offensive coordinator be fired.
Yeah,
But do
it's,
but
it's
do we really think that's going to happen long term? No, because we're in the middle of a team sale. Simple as that.
yeah.
And I'm actually going to start with my most impressive player because I am actually going with Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in in an NFC South clinching game. Mike Evans had 10 receptions for 207 yards with a trio of tutties. Evans, Tom Brady, granted, he threw for 432 yards, all three of the touchdowns going to Evans. So Mike Evans was a valid target for pretty much about 33% of Tom Brady's completions. Where are you going with your most impressive player, Ruckus?
Since Derek Carr was benched for Jared Stidham, and like you said, Stidham was uh kept him in it. I'm gonna say the most impressive player was Jared Stidham. I could have said Devontae Adams, but I decided it was probably just better to have Stidham because he was the part of the crew at that point. Other than that, are we ready to do the good, bad, and ugly?
Yep. Yep. I think we are ready for our Eastwood segment, and I think that Ruckus probably would have thrown his stuff already in there, and I thought he was gonna throw it in.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're welcome. Are we good or?
You were 100% good.
Okay, I didn't know.
I was
I heard the
I was
silence and I was
waiting.
like, Spedus,
I
are you
was
still there?
waiting. Um. Oh yeah. I was dealing with a nuisance flying around flying around. So I had to. It ended up landing on a napkin that I could pick up and kill it.
There you
So,
go.
so
It's all good. I was just like, Spanish, are you there? You okay?
I was like, yeah. I was trying to do it abruptly enough before Ruckus is just like, what the heck is going on here?
God damn it, fly. All right.
More like stink bug, but
Oh, those are the worst too.
yep.
All right. So for my good this week, I have a very uplifting thing, and that is the first-year head coach Brian DeBall, I believe is how you pronounce his last name,
I think I have actually heard it said Dable, but
or Dable. Or I thought at first it was DeBool, but anyways, Brian Dabble, getting the Giants back to the playoffs in his first season as a head coach. Let's go.
that actually is a really I think that is one of the better things that's happened in the NFL, and it kind of steered them in the right direction. I do not know if that's going to lead to a longer term contract now for Danny Dimes, but step in the right direction, maybe.
I have a feeling that maybe they like keep Daniel Jones for now, but they look for a future QB, like in someone either in the draft or they trade for one. I that because I don't. I feel like Daniel Jones has been really bad for like the past couple of years because he still has this bug where whenever he runs downfield he'll like somehow drop the ball, but like
Yeah,
no one's
it's like
perfect.
what the Commanders have. They don't have long term. They don't have a long term solution, but they have something that's working for them.
Yeah.
My good is that playoff races are really tight and coming down to the wire, and really, honestly, both conferences. I mean, granted that one of those major races, being the AFC North race, was affected by Monday night, as the Bengals were the team involved. Um, but you've got Baltimore, you've got Pittsburgh, you've got really Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay fighting for the last wild card spot. In the East, you've got Dallas and Philly battling for the NFC East supremacy and whether or not Dallas is going to repeat. So I think there's a lot of good that's kind of come along with it, which kind of interlaces with my bad in that Philly's stranglehold on home field advantage is kind of slipping away. Like they should have locked this thing up about a couple weeks ago, but they haven't been playing their best football. Granted, Jalen Hurts is now hurt, and that kind of hurts, no pun intended. But I think that has but it but it makes a little bit more of a net improvement when you have that the Eagles do play the Giants on Sunday should they go at it, and they have a good chance to actually hang on to it, but their chances are kind of right now, if they're not careful, they'll go slip sliding away.
Yeah, for sure. And on the note of like games playing, it sounds like they're still going to play this weekend. There hasn't been like a cutthroat decision whether or not they're going to like move those games a week or whatnot, but definitely the Bills Bengals game is not being played this week.
Yes, and it is hard to tell even if the Bills or Bengals will play this Sunday though,
Yeah, I don't really know. Um,
because
I've heard
ones
theories
most
out
affected.
there. Sorry, go ahead.
But I've heard, but those two teams are the ones most affected by the whole thing.
Yeah. I was about to say, I heard theories that maybe they would give both teams like a tie, or they would give whoever had the lead uh, the W, or they would just factor it in on like seeding or win percentage for the year.
I would give it as just a tie. I would give it as a tie, honestly. Just give it as a tie because really not enough football game was played to really have that matter. Because I think it was still very early in the game.
Yeah, it was like 5:58 left in the first quarter.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not enough football. That's definitely not enough football.
Yeah.
So
All
where
right.
does your bad kind of go?
So my bad is the are the Buccaneers NFC South. I feel dumb for asking this, but I feel like I'd rather ask the question now rather than later.
They clinched it.
Right. So like are isn't it the NFC South though is their division?
It is the NFC South, yes.
All right. So my bad this week is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bad season still gets them into the playoffs because of the NFC South as it has unfolded.
Really, ultimately, the Buccaneers were just the ones that were able to turn the lemons that were dealt into a little bit more lemonade than the rest of it. That's just kind of what that boils down to. And I think the uglies for us both involve quarterbacks, but in two different conferences. Where are you headed, Ruckus?
So I went in the handling of the Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. So earlier in the year, he had a very bad concussion-like injury after he was cleared the week before of those kind of symptoms where he got beat up a lot. And now, as of recently, he was put back into the concussion protocol after uh being, I believe, hit a couple times, like a game or so ago, and then uh later being told, okay, we're putting him back in the concussion protocol. They did not do it well, like they did last time. I mean, considering last time he looked like he was like curled up like a spider, this time it was more that he just wasn't playing very good football because of the fact that he was suffering from these concussion like symptoms.
Yeah, and really just concussions are no joke. And I feel that Tua's career is going to get shortened because of these concussions. This also kind of reminds us a little bit of a Danny White situation like years ago. Or Randy White, or yeah, I think it's Danny White actually, that like for the Cowboys that retired because of too many concussions. And but mine still stays in the East, but into the NFC. The Commanders' quarterback decision making in Ron Rivera sticking with Carson Wentz for this game. Carson Wentz does not fit in that offense for Washington. Yes, Carson Wentz has a stronger arm. But Carson Wentz has something where he's causing himself to hang on to the ball too long. And that line is SpongeBob porous, and it's causing a lot of mistakes. And that Carson Wentz does not have enough time to get this ball out. So, I mean, the pocket would collapse on Heineke, and just Heineke was able to escape, but sometimes he could only do so much with how he escaped. So, really, I think Heineke would have been the best chance for the Commanders to make the postseason. However, something in Ron Rivera's mind needing an offensive spark, but that was sparkless. And JP Finley just said it best on new at the end of that Browns game, where it's just like there was no spark, there was just absolutely nothing. And this is for a strong team, this is a clean house moment. But it's hard to tell what the Commanders are going to do because the team is in such a weakened state. The best game this week, Ruckus, was
The Broncos and Chiefs for me, a rivalry game.
I had Steelers Ravens, another rivalry game, and it came down to the wire. And Kenny Pickett showing he very well could have made it. And we both said that the worst game this week was Browns Commanders.
Yeah, that was pretty rough to watch for highlights even.
Yep. And the bold take, you said
The Bengals will get eliminated early in the playoffs to the Los Angeles Chargers if they play. I don't know what the seeding's going to look like, but we'll have to see later on in the coming week or so, I would assume.
the Bengals currently have the 3 seed, and I think the Chargers, you said the Chargers have the 6?
I didn't say they had the 6, but that sounds about right.
Yep. But my take is that the Eagles will somehow retain home field advantage throughout the playoffs in the NFC, as they will beat the New York Giants. And then our burning questions.
My burning question for this week is, how far do the Bucks get into the playoffs, assuming their situation? Because
Well, I'm going to say not very far.
that's what I was thinking, but also Tom Brady has done this shit before with the Patriots, and then they went to the Super Bowl, even though they looked really terrible. And keep in mind, they don't have Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, or any of the um, weapons that they had in New England. There's no Danny Amendola either. He gone.
You still have he still has the potential for Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, if Scotty Miller plays or
Right.
there.
My point
Mike,
was is
Mike Evans
he doesn't have any of the weapons that he had in New England is what I was my point
he
was.
he doesn't have his own reliables. But he's creating new ones, especially with Mike Evans being as explosive as he is.
Yeah.
So if they end up drawing Dallas, the walking accidents waiting to happen, hopefully Tampa beats Dallas. And then they fall in the divisional. But I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas wins a game and it gets a little hairy.
Yeah, and then they start jumping into the Salvation Army bucket.
Yeah. But I have which playoff race is expected to be the most entertaining? The NFC East chase. I had the NFC South in that potential there, but Tampa Bay just shored that up. Titans Jags are what maybe Baltimore Cincinnati for the marbles in the AFC South or AFC North. Or who gets kind of the final spots in each conference. Like which kind of thing is going to be really the most entertaining for you to see?
I would say the NFC East, just strictly because of the Eagles, and that whole division is just it seems like it's been more competitive than it's been in years past, as far as in a good version of competitive versus a bad version. Because the bad version of it years ago was that
Washington made it with a 7-9 record.
yeah, and then like the Giants weren't doing that hot, and then the Cowboys weren't doing as hot, but they were still in it because of how bad the records were. And this time around, it seems like it's gone the other way on the pendulum, where the teams are doing really well and they have a lot of competition. I like it when it's kind of like that. Kind of like when, like, I'm going to compare this to like the World Series of baseball, when you got two teams they're both high octane and they're just hitting dingers off of each other, and they're having to like switch out pitchers and whatnot, trying to do different critical situations. That's kind of the high octane kind of things I like to see. As long as it's like not a super dumpster fire kind of way where like each team has a turnover or whatnot. It's just the fact of like, okay, high octane scoring. Kind of like the Rams Chiefs game from Monday Night Football back in the day, like 2016, 2015, I should say. That
Oh,
was
so
a
you're
good
wanting a
one.
ton of scoring. I love a little bit more of that knockdown, drag out, like it very back and forth. Like make the action a little more intense and back and forth. Like
Yeah,
with
that
a
or like the
little.
Buffalo Bills Chiefs game from the divisional last year.
I
That was
mean,
fun
it's a
too.
high. That's a high scoring, but I'm talking like pound, like grounds, pounds. The Titans Jags actually looks like that one's going to be a fun one for the marbles. Titans Jags looks entertaining. I think Baltimore Cincy, if Cincinnati does manage to stomach up and play, will be a very entertaining game as well. But I think that the AFC South is a fun, like that's a fun, it's a fun one for the marbles. That's going to be up for grabs Saturday night. And now we move on to the color commentary. The color commentary is where Ruckus and I have created scenarios and we kind of embrace a little bit of debate. If you have suggestions, of course, let us know in our comment section on YouTube. This week's color commentary I called it New Year's resolutions because we're in 2023. So, in 2023 for the following things, what is a New Year's resolution for these situations? I'm going to start with Broncos country.
As far as Broncos country, I think if they're going to live up to what they could have been in the hype before all this stuff happened, I would say get a head coach that could lead the way and help out Russell Wilson rather than trying to direct him or just kind of sit there as like a fly on the wall, like actually do stuff. Like, yes, it seems like Russell Wilson is like a big influence and whatnot, but make the team like congeal together rather than just like burning it to the ground. Like, get a head coach that will understand the offense of what Russell Wilson wants. That isn't Pete Carroll, and like maybe get someone like Eric Bieniemy or someone that Denver thinks is a better head coach than Nathaniel Hackett, because it wasn't all Nathaniel Hackett's fault, but it was part of his fault. He was part of that whole thing.
I would say get a get a head coach that has coached up Russell Wilson in the past. I mean, not necessarily a Pete Carroll, but would think like maybe if you were able to find like a Daryl Bevel or something like that, that like people who know the Seattle offense and what it was all about. That to me, I think, is what Denver really needs if they're wanting to keep Russell Wilson. If they're wanting to kind of experiment and figure out what they want to do with a Russell Wilson and kind of maybe bring him to the back seat, quarterback could be an option for them.
Yeah, I don't
The next
know.
one the next one that I'm going to throw out there is the Indianapolis Colts.
Um, I think what they need to do is I almost thought we weren't going to really do a New Year's resolution for them because Jim Irsay kind of just does what he wants. I mean, that's kind of what the job of a general manager is in the nutshell. Besides just what's better for the team, is like what's better for the organization as a whole. Um, maybe they keep Jeff Saturday, or maybe they put him in a role that better suits him rather than someone that just came in off the street that was like a coach for high school, or I believe it was high school, right? Jeff Saturday.
He might have been, yeah.
Um, but yeah, like get someone that had. I was almost tempted to see if Tony Dungy was ready, but it sounded like he is still enjoying retirement as a whole. Because in 2009, they were saying that he wanted to spend more time with his family, and that he felt like he coached long enough to where he was fine with getting away from the football and just becoming like an announcer like he is now, or like
Yep.
a person that just like a reporter or something.
The
So
big
who
name and
knows?
the big name and speculation we will talk about here a little later on for certain things. And actually, in two cases, I think for the Colts, it's definitely get a coach that, I mean, not necessarily a coach that Matt Ryan has had, but I would say just get a coach that can kind of provide a spark.
You know what'd be kind of a nutty thing, but also would make some sense, is if you had Peyton Manning as your head coach.
I don't know. I don't think that they would do that because Peyton Manning, I think, is too much of an ambassador amongst other avenues that though Peyton could, I don't think it would be best for him to.
Yeah, I don't know, because the thing is, we didn't think that Jeff Saturday was going to be an interim head coach for the Colts after they fired Frank Reich. But at this point, since like they made that bold move to get a guy off the street that was didn't have any pro football coaching experience, I feel like if you get someone that could like fire it up like Peyton could, where he was a Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Colts at one point and helped his team get through adversity on two different teams and win two different Super Bowls, I think you could make the possible judgment call, but also I think the logical route, like we were saying, or like you were saying, is probably not good, or it's probably not in the cards for Peyton to be a head coach. But I don't know. I just kind of had that as a possibility.
Yep. The next one I have is Lamar Jackson.
Stay healthy. That's his New Year's resolution right there.
I have shut up and take the money you're given because you did not play like you deserved fully guaranteed money,
Yeah, your stunt double
especially
did better
as
than your actual uh quarterback itself. Like Tyler Huntley was doing better than Lamar Jackson. It seemed like you can barely tell those guys alike.
Carlos Correa.
Um, sounds like they just need to. He just needs to make sure he's going by the rules and also staying healthy, and hopefully the contract situation irons itself out. It looks like it's doing all right from a tweet I saw where it says he was ready for work and he was wearing the New York Met, or like a New York T-shirt with his kid.
Yeah, so that could be a sign that ended up being the right direction. Um, Obviously Derek Carr, a new destination. Washington Commanders, a new owner.
For the love of God, please.
Yep. Jim Harbaugh.
I don't have much to say about Jimmy, but my guess is either new coaching job or something along that lines. I think is what you probably were thinking.
I think it is a hopeful a hopeful NFL suitor, but I think it also could be to to continue to pick up and beat Ohio State where he left off.
If there was a NFL team, who do you think he would coach?
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the Indianapolis Colts be the winners of getting
That's what
Jim
I
Harbaugh.
was thinking. I was thinking it was either the Colts or it could have been like a NFC team, like the Commanders or something like that, maybe. Because he originally coached for the 49ers and then went to Michigan.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I think Jim is John for some reason. Because John is the one that's a little bit shorter that coaches for the Ravens, whereas Jim is the taller one, it seems, like the bigger,
Yeah.
huskier one.
Jim was also the former quarterback too.
That's right, that's right. Remember when they had the quarterback competition in the Pro Bowl? They need to bring that back. Not just the one where you throw at the targets and then they make like the fancy like smoke
Oh, like the
pyrotechnics.
actual like the chalked up footballs and
Yeah.
yeah, the quarterback like the actual quarterback challenge.
Hmm.
I don't think we're gonna go through all of these, but I'm gonna say notably Major League Baseball. What's the New Year's resolution for MLB?
Um. Well, they just got rid of the shift, so better strategy and really just I don't know. Maybe just keep the format of what you did last year with the playoffs, where you have uh to make things interesting like they did, and
Oh
make it
yeah,
easier for teams to get into the playoffs.
the new format is entertaining. Yes. But what I am enjoying is that yeah, this new shift is to pray that the is really their New Year's resolution is be hopeful that this change to banning the shift or changing shift rules does not come back to bite them in the butt. And last but not least, the Kelsey brothers.
I think they just keep growing and growing and growing, so I just hope the best for them. And um, yeah, I was somewhat shocked today, as of the recording on Wednesday, that they had like a 30-minute episode, but at the same time, I didn't put it past them because it's a really weird situation that's going on. So I mean, they did it the way they wanted to do it, and I respect that.
Yeah, I
And
didn't listen yet, so
they mainly just talked about how they felt about uh the whole thing. I won't spoil it because I know that you like the podcast as well. I kind of listened to like about 20 minutes in, and then it was when Kelsey started talking about his thing
or
on it, and he was
Travis or Jason.
Travis. He was kind of entering what his brother was saying, and I just kind of uh tuned out at that point because I just knew it was going to be the same of what Jason was saying at the beginning. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, they got the point across. But yeah, the Kelsey brothers, I feel like they're gonna grow bigger and better than they did before, and maybe they get someone that's bigger than what Patrick Mahomes was, or they do more collaborations with like Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, other Philadelphia Eagles players.
Waiting for Andy Reid.
Dude, if they get Andy Reid on there, they gotta like incentivize them. They're probably gonna. I wonder if they're gonna start doing like challenges, cause like you know how like other guest spots like for Hot Ones or for like
Yeah.
other like YouTubers that do like these challenges that are
It
based off of like what the personality of the person is.
Andy Reid's has got to be with a cheeseburger.
And then Patrick Mahomes has to be with ketchup, where he just puts ketchup on everything. And
Yeah.
he even said recently, I think this was like Sunday. He was saying that Sterling picked up the addiction of
to catch up. Yep.
Yep. Just like her daddy.
Yep. And now we go to probably one of our most interestingly creative segments, the weekly stud and dud. Although I think really the real studs in this case are the Bills and Bengals for how they came together. And that also really, I would say, for me, included Stephon Diggs with playing rock, paper, scissors with a kid in the stands and was able to give him a football after doing so. Granted
Also,
that the game didn't last very long, but still, I think Stephon Diggs and fan interaction, Stephon Diggs going to the hospital to see Hamlin. I think McDermott also did too. So really, that whole
Speaking of McDermott, shout out to him and Zach Taylor trying to handle this the best way they possibly could. And according to some sources, uh, Sean McDermott was telling Zach Taylor I don't know if it was like whenever they were showing the feed of them at the locker rooms talking about what they were gonna do, but shout out to Sean saying, "Hey, I don't think I can um, coach this game
this.
because one of my players is in the hospital and he wanted to see if he was
Yeah,
okay."
yeah, yeah. I need to be at the hospital.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be my honorable mention, but also just in general, I am just glad that everyone involved were doing the right thing and not just based off of what the NFL was trying to do. Like, yes, the NFL was doing their best, but also it could have been a whole lot worse. All right, you ready
But
for
you
my
also had a
stud?
stud. Yeah, but you also had a stud from another
Yeah.
game.
Um, so my stud is more of a group effort from the Chiefs, and that is the Chiefs secondary with the interception by Ladarius Sneed and the forced fumble from Trent McDuffie, which both had a very good game. And it sounds like Sneed is going to be healthy for the Raiders game, and the same with McDuffie. And it sounded like they activated McCole Hardman, so he is not out for the season. He is just probably going to be inactive for the game against the Raiders on Saturday, for those Chiefs fans out there.
And then your dud, Ruckus.
My dud is it was the Georgia Ohio State.
Yeah, it was Georgia Ohio State. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I was just double checking because I didn't really watch the college football scene. I was more paid attention on the NFL. But my dud is the Georgia Bulldog, the actual dog that was in its throne. Uh, was falling asleep at the game, and this is where I put in my booger. Come on, man! Impression. But like, yeah, I saw that footage whenever they were doing the pregame for the Monday night game, and I saw that and I was like, ooh, I gotta put that as my dud because that'd be funny. All right, Spanish, what was your dud?
Straight classless, really, and even Kayvon Thibodeau afterward in talking about how Jeff Saturday kind of like slammed him for it was kind of like this dude was young, obnoxious, and all that. But Kayvon Thibodeau for doing a turf angel next to a convulsing Nick Foles after a sack. I was not like. Now it's one thing if you're going to celebrate doing a turf angel. It's quite another for where you place yourself during said turf angel.
Yeah.
That should have been a flag for unsportsmanlike conduct. And that and left at that. But it never happened because Foles was also hurt during the play.
Yeah.
But then
Was it like more of a wrist
also,
thing or?
I don't know. It may have been. But I think another honorable mention in this unfortunately, it's hard to tell with the context of how this one really would go. But Skip Bayless again with his tweet during the whole thing, Shannon Sharp missing.
Yeah.
It it's hard to tell whether Skip is in we gotta we gotta cancel him or we gotta kind of like keep an eye on him. And
I more so just ignored the stupidity because there are some times where you just need to, like, yeah, it's a bad thing and whatnot, but if you're giving someone negative attention, even if it's uh something where you think it's good, it'll still give them publicity no matter what. And that's partly why I was kind of like, okay, should I just ignore this and like not be like, oh, we should just cancel this guy because he said a crappy thing? Like, yes, he said a crappy thing, but are we going? Should we give him attention for it? Probably not. But how? It's kind of hard to navigate that. Like you're pretty much saying, like, do we
yeah, it's
cancel
like people are
him?
calling for his job over it.
Yeah,
And
like there's people saying like, "Oh, I would rather just have see Shannon Sharp because here's my thing with Shannon. I love it when he just whenever Skip is going a little bonkers, he'll go like skip, but like that's I don't really watch the Undisputed show, but I just always whenever I was like watching the Royals or something because they were affiliated with Bali and all that, and sometimes I would hear the Undisputed kind of thing, and then you just hear Shannon go skip, and that's like the one thing that like got that I just get reminded of. I don't really watch their show.
Shannon got rubbed the wrong way from Skip Art interrupting Shannon during a monologue this morning, and then obviously the tweet Monday night where Skip was saying like at the end of the tweet he basically said it was like, oh, this whole thing seems so irrelevant. Like where he's talking about like how does the NFL go about this, but it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like this is completely irrelevant because we're more concerned about the human involved. It's like no one read the tweets previous and really the full context of everything Skip Bayless was tweeting. He was
Yeah.
asking the he was asking a good question at maybe not the right time. It just was like a too soon moment.
Yeah, that's more of something that you kind of look at maybe later on down the line, like for like after like probably a few years, or like if you're doing like a hypothetical like near the end of the season kind of thing, possibly even that.
I said maybe not while they were addressing the like maybe Skip Bayless's question would have been like, okay, they decided to suspend the game. Maybe this question was a little bit more suitable for maybe the next day.
What if
Maybe
he just
maybe
didn't
like
tweet at all and just straight up handled it more like he was concerned rather than making it sound like, "Oh, well what's why did they do this because of blah 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 blah." Like instead
he
of sounding like he was like mad about it or seems judgmental about it, kind of like where someone's like, "Well, what the hell, guys? Like this guy got carted off the field, so what?" Like and my thoughts, I think he should have just left it alone on Twitter and
he
just waited.
probably it was a tweet that probably question wise the question maybe needed to be asked another time.
Or worded in
Not
a different way that didn't sound judgmental. Because the
I
way
don't
that.
think it didn't seem judgmental to me, but it was one of those things where it's just like maybe you don't necessarily ask the question while the guy is still down, while the guy is still getting CPR.
Right. I was just
Maybe
saying straight up, like.
you ask that question maybe like after the end result.
Yeah. And my thing is like, some people will interpret different things on like a text document or like a tweet in different ways. And obviously that showed when people were commenting, like, oh, you're like insensitive or this or that. Like if you if you saw that person in public and were sitting next to them face to face, it probably would have been a different story rather than um, the way it was where he was tweeting that certain thing. Because it's really hard to kind of tell how someone is portraying a certain uh, conversation when it's just a uh, text message or like a DM or even like a tweet or like a post. It's
Yeah.
very different. That's what I was trying to get at, but yeah, I could see both ways of the coin, but also not everybody's going to interpret it the way you want them to, and that's why I was saying maybe Skip should have just kept his mouth shut and just waited till the next day to gather his thoughts, and also try to just be genuine rather than try to get ratings, because sometimes with that you get like a negativity factor where it's like all publicity is good publicity even if it's bad. But that's when I'm kind of like, okay, do we really need to give someone that kind of attention when they did it to themselves and we could just ignore it, or do we can't try to like make them look bad or be like, oh, let's cancel them?
Yeah.
I think cancel
Yeah.
culture is kind of dumb, but in certain ways
Oh,
it could be kind of beneficial, but eh.
like there's certain things where like there's certain things where it's just like, yeah, we need to be mindful of this and hold this person accountable. But at the same time, it's like you don't necessarily like they're going after people for like things that were so far back. I think even the Jerry Jones thing, they were fishing for something like years back when Jerry Jones is obviously he's older than dirt.
Yeah.
He's he grew up in a time where racism was a thing. Of course there was going to be something along the lines because that's real life at that moment. It
I
happens.
I don't like it when people go like, "Oh, let's just dig in the past and do that." Like, I think you should take it for face value and understand what was going on in those times rather than being like, "Okay, this is wrong now and that we should fix it." Like, no. If you want to do that kind of crap, invent your own time machine. That is all I'm going to say for now, and I am trying not to go on a rant cuz
That is true. That is true. But Ruckus, I'm gonna say this here. Go ahead and take us out.
all right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the Ruckus and the Menace podcast. I am Ruckus.
I'm Spence the Menace.
Thank you for listening to our podcast that we do try to do every week. Also, for the since this episode was a very touchy one with Damar Hamlin, prayers go out to Damar Hamlin and his family and the Buffalo Bills organization and the entire NFL for what is going on. We did not think this was going to be so like such a big change and development, but in all honesty, both parties did their jobs in a very well manner. We'll see what happens with the game, but other than that, um, have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.
Deuces.